Hello again. We're here for part 4 of the Bascule Bridge project built by AHM, or manufactured by AHM and or Tyco, probably from the 1970s. Now this is the back view of the bridge and the scratch-built tower. Now if you look, you could see and say, wait a minute, these cables are back. Now these are white cables. Originally I had red, but these cords are actually from a window blind, an old window blind, and the cord is fantastically strong. Now, it's set up to test it. Obviously, if you're going to put it on the layout, I could refine it. I could get rid of this extra leftover piece from the knot. I could make the metal pieces smaller, to try to make it look more like scale. Also, I have a clipper here, an alligator clip, keeping the cable from winding up and getting close to the track, because it could either snag on one of the ties or end up impeding a train car coming through. So you might say, why am I going back to this system when I spent all that time, making the lever arm? That was the flat metal one, and this was the wire one made out of a coat hanger. Well, the problem is that the erratic motion of the arm on the big wheel was too much for the design of this particular bridge. I started having to add weights to the top, which I remove now, weights to the side, which I remove now. All extra things that I didn't need before. So it was going to basically change the whole design of the bridge. Another way to do it is with this brass tube on the bottom. If I made something more elaborate, like a crankshaft, where I could have had a side rod in effect here, or a piston rod, there, and then the motion would have done this, to pull it down and up. But now we're, cutting into the model. I mean, it was a whole lot of work. And looking back, now I would love to get the actual original mechanized unit and see how it performed, whether it's an HO or N scale, because I'm sure it was manufactured well and it probably did work well. But with the motor I have in here, it was not. So I went back to this design, which back in the day worked. The only drawback with this design is you have to pay attention. If you let it spin too much, it will pull the bridge over. But with any operation, usually someone has to pay attention. There are some things where if you spend a lot of time and effort, you could make it automated and not need to go through that and press a button and everything's automatic. And that's great. But, that's really going beyond what this model was. In fact, on some level, if I put on this side a little crank handle and just did it by hand, that was the non-powered version, and that probably worked the best of all. But again, it's all a matter of how much effort you want to put into it. Someone with a tremendous skill set could scratch build this from plastic, styrene sheets, and balsa wood, and regular wood, and sheet metal, and you could make, a bridge that would go to the Smithsonian. But we're trying to stay within the parameters of what we have. So what I've done now is I've hooked up the power. We're going to give it a test, and I've taken out an older power pack, but in great shape, and this was the box. MRC, and this is such an old box that I don't know if you can see here, but it says made in Brooklyn, and MRC hasn't been in Brooklyn in a long time. I just didn't want to move the camera right now. Maybe I'll show you the box later, but it's an old throttle pack and it's a pretty good shape. Now we're going to turn the power on and we're going to see if we can get this to lift. We got to be very careful. So you see it works. And now I put the alligator clip on this side to keep the cable, but I didn't on that side, and you see how it will roll up. So let's see now if we can get this to go back and roll down. So as you can see, it works. It's not a bad design. Let's just try one more time. I'm going to put an alligator clip on here just to keep the cable off to the side, just so you could see. Now that eventually would be replaced with a piece of plastic or something, what have you. Now you see that was a pretty smooth lift, and nothing wrong with that. And I put an extra length of wire so that you have a little slag time to shut the power off once the bridge is in the other position. It doesn't always, it depends which way it's coiled. Oopsie, a little bit too much. Let's go back. But as you can see, it actually works, and it works pretty well. I would like to try to get it from another angle, see if I can do that. Okay, here we are with the bridge taking a broadside look, and we're going to try to hope to make this work so you could see it from this angle. We're trying to put the power on slow. Well, there it worked. Now let's see if we could go in reverse. Whoop. You got to be very careful, and what I'm going to have to do is put a some kind of resistor so that the speed is slower. Now this is interesting. It went so high up that the bridge weight didn't want it to come back down. So let's see what happens. Okay. And let's try it reverse. Well, that would let a pretty tall ship through. Alright, so I think you can see that this project came full circle. We tried to, bring the bridge back to the way it was, or the way we thought it was, with a side rod operation, which could have either been spun manually with a crankshaft on the opposite side of the wheel tower, or through an internal motor. I don't have the original AHM motorized unit. I'm pretty sure that it worked very well, because I really like AHM and Tyco, and whether you consider them toys or models, to me, model railroading is a wonderful combination of toys and real engineering in miniature, and I'm sure it worked pretty well. But I tried to recreate it a long time ago, and with the help of my friend, we had come up with this cable system, and it required the minimal adaptation of the functioning units of the bridge. And as you can see, there's no extra weights on the sides. The only extra weight is on the bottom of the bridge that I put that extra weight, and that was the only extra weight. And again, that's a very minor modification, and it works really well. And the only issue is you've got to use some skill. But isn't that really part of the fun of model railroading. That it's not just press a button, walk away, drink your coffee, have breakfast, come back, oh, everything's working. That would be nice, and I know that you can do that with computerization. But at the same time, don't you want to be the operator? Don't you want to, have some skill? And even if you did it by hand, flipping a switch by hand, back in the day, there had to be a switchman. There was a fellow who did it. So just look at everything and say, I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to work on it. And as you can see, I had a great idea. I thought, oh, wow, I'm going to put the side rod back. And it wasn't as great an idea as I thought, or would require a ton of extra work. Now, I know that some bridges like this will have a motor in the housing, and it will crawl along the top here and pull it. And that's great, too. And again, I'm not sure of the actual mechanism of a true operating bascule bridge, but this worked pretty well, and I consider this a fun project. And I'm glad I learned something that maybe back in the day as a kid, when I did something, it wasn't so bad. And there you have it. Now, in a future video, I'm going to review the old Bachmann bascule bridge, which was a bridge that lifted up and you could put it over a figure 8 on your layout. And with that bridge, the interesting thing, it had a girder bridge, but I don't know how realistic that would have been to have a girder bridge blocking a train track underneath and requiring it to be lifted. You would think they would just replace the girder bridge, which blocks the lower train, with a regular high truss bridge so that all the metal work is above the track, having a greater space below. But nevertheless, it is what it is. It was a well-engineered toy, and we're going to look at that next. And hope you enjoyed this video and the work leading up to it, and enjoy your day.